The photograph sat in a silver frame on my dresser for 8 years before I noticed it had changed. A simple prom picture, me in a lavender dress with an empire waist, standing beside Tyler Abernathy, the boy I would eventually marry. My hair was in an elaborate updo, my smile strained but proud. I remember that night in fragments, the warm May air, the twinkle lights in the gymnasium, the weight of expectations. It was during a casual brunch with my college friends when Jenna made the comment. She'd picked up the frame while waiting for me to find my jacket, studied it for a moment, then laughed, a short, uncomfortable sound that made everyone in the room pause. "God, Rachel," she said, "you look like a slave in this picture." The table went silent. 5 pairs of eyes darted between us. "What the hell, Jenna?" I snatched the frame from her hands, cheeks burning. "I'm sorry," she stammered. "It's just your expression and the way you're standing behind him, looking so, I don't know, subservient." I dismissed it as a tasteless joke, a momentary lapse in judgment from a friend who should have known better. But that night, after everyone had gone, I found myself studying the photograph again. It was the same picture that had always been there, Tyler front and center, me slightly behind him, my hands clasped demurely before me, my eyes downcast. Except, that wasn't how I remembered posing at all. I was sure we had stood side by side, equals on the precipice of adulthood. I was certain my gaze had been forward, confident. 3 days later, when I looked at the photograph again, my dress had changed from lavender to gray. The first alteration was subtle enough that I questioned my own memory. Had my prom dress really been lavender? I texted my mother to ask, casually, as if it were a trivial thing. "Of course it was lavender," she replied. "We spent weeks finding the perfect shade to complement your complexion." I stared at the gray dress in the photograph, feeling a chill across my shoulders. When Tyler came home from work, I showed him the picture. "Does anything look different to you?" He barely glanced at it. "It's our prom picture. You look beautiful as always." "What color is my dress?" "Gray." He kissed my forehead. "The exact color of your eyes when you're thinking too hard. Like now." "What's going on?" I said nothing. I had learned over our decade together, for years dating, 6 years married, that Tyler disliked when I fixated on details. He called it my anxiety spiral and claimed it was better to redirect me than to feed into it. So I smiled and changed the subject, but that night I lay awake beside him, my thoughts churning. The next morning, I called Jenna. "I need you to look at something," I said, and texted her a photo of the photo. There was a long pause before she responded. "Rachel, are you okay? Just tell me what you see." "It's your prom picture. You're standing behind Tyler, wearing that gray dress you always complained made you look washed out." My throat constricted. I never owned a gray prom dress. Jenna's voice softened. "Maybe we should meet for coffee." At the cafe, Jenna looked at me with concern as I explained how the photograph had changed. First my position from beside Tyler to behind him, and then the color of my dress. "You don't remember making that joke about me looking like a slave in the picture?" I asked. She shook her head slowly. "I would never say something like that." But I remembered it clearly, the silence that fell over the room, the rush of humiliation I'd felt. "Rachel," she said carefully, "you know I love you. But this sounds significant. Have you talked to Dr. Morris about it?" Dr. Morris was my therapist from 3 years ago, after the miscarriage. The suggestion that I needed psychiatric help stung. "I'm not imagining things," I insisted, though doubt had begun to creep in. That evening, I dug through our storage boxes in the basement, searching for my high school yearbook. If the prom photo had somehow been altered, the yearbook would show the original. But when I finally found it, dust-covered and slightly damp from the basement humidity, the page with the prom photos had been torn out. The jagged edge of paper remained, a silent accusation. Tyler found me sitting cross-legged on the basement floor, surrounded by open boxes. "Spring cleaning in September?" he joked. "Someone tore out the prom page from my yearbook," I said, hearing the tremor in my voice. He crouched beside me, taking the book. "Huh. Weird. Maybe you did it yourself? You always said high school was a waste of time." Had I? I couldn't remember saying that, but Tyler had always had a better memory for the things I'd said and done. "I need to find more pictures from prom," I said. "Do your parents have any?" Tyler's expression clouded slightly. "My parents moved to Florida, remember? They donated most of our old stuff before downsizing." I nodded, recalling the rushed weekend we'd spent helping them pack, Tyler insisting we couldn't keep any of his childhood memorabilia because our house was already too cluttered. "What about my parents?" I persisted. "They must have prom photos." "Rachel, Tyler's voice took on that patient tone he used when he thought I was being irrational. What's this really about? Are you feeling nostalgic? Regretful? Neither, I said too quickly. I just want to see the pictures. Then we'll call your mom tomorrow, he said, helping me up. But let's clean this mess first. You know how the dust aggravates your allergies. I didn't have allergies. I had never had allergies. But as Tyler guided me upstairs, gently scolding me for creating disorder, I felt a strange fog settling over my thoughts, as if reality itself was becoming porous. The next day, Tyler called my mother from his cell phone while I was in the shower. When I came downstairs, he was making pancakes, whistling. I talked to your mom, he said, sliding a plate toward me. She couldn't find any prom photos, but she said she'd look in the attic next time they're up there. Something in his tone made me pause, fork halfway to my mouth. I could have called her myself. I was just trying to help, he said, smile never faltering. You seem so stressed lately. Eat your breakfast before it gets cold. I forced myself to take a bite, though the pancakes seemed to expand in my mouth, making it difficult to swallow. Tyler watched me eat, still smiling, before heading upstairs to get ready for work. As soon as his car pulled out of the driveway, I called my mother. Did Tyler call you about prom photos? I asked without preamble. Tyler? No, honey. Is everything okay? The pancakes curdled in my stomach. Everything's fine. I was just wondering if you had any pictures from my senior prom. Of course we do, she said brightly. A whole album. Your father took hundreds of photos that day. Do you want me to send them? Relief flooded through me. Yes, please. As soon as you can. I can do better than that, she said. We're coming into town this weekend to see your sister anyway. We'll bring the album with us. My parents arrived on Saturday with my sister Emily in tow. Tyler greeted them warmly, the perfect son-in-law, helping my father with their bags and complimenting my mother on her new haircut. Emily gave me a searching look as she hugged me, whispering, "You look tired," in my ear. I had always been close with my younger sister, though our relationship had grown more distant since her move to Chicago for graduate school. Looking at her now, confident, stylish, unmarked by compromise, I felt a pang of something like envy. After dinner, as Tyler and my father discussed baseball stats in the living room, I pulled my mother and Emily into the den. I wanted to look at those prom photos, I said, trying to keep my voice casual. Oh, my mother's hand flew to her mouth. I completely forgot the album. I'm so sorry, Rachel. I stared at her. You forgot? But you said it was the whole reason you were coming. She looked confused. No, sweetheart. We came to see Emily's new work presentation. Remember? She's giving it at the conference center tomorrow. Emily nodded, eyeing me strangely. Are you feeling okay, Ratch? You seem off. I'm fine, I lied. Just disappointed about the photos. I can have your father scan them when we get home, my mother offered. That would be great, I said, forcing a smile. Later that night, as everyone prepared for bed, I cornered Emily in the guest bathroom. Do you remember my prom dress? I asked urgently. Lavender, she said immediately. With that weird empire waist that made you look pregnant. Mom tried to talk you out of it. Relief washed over me. And in the pictures, was I standing next to Tyler or behind him? Emily frowned. Next to him, obviously. Why? I pulled out my phone and showed her the picture of the framed photo. That's odd, she said slowly. This isn't how I remember it at all. And the dress is gray now, not lavender. Emily's eyes widened. Rachel, what's going on? Before I could answer, there was a knock at the door. Everything okay in there? Tyler's voice called. Emily handed back my phone. Fine, she called. Just sister talk. When she looked at me again, something had shifted in her expression. Maybe you should get some rest, she said, her voice suddenly matching the concerned tone my mother had used earlier. You know how you get when you're overtired. I stepped back, feeling as if I'd been slapped. I'm not making this up, Em. I didn't say you were, she replied, but her eyes told a different story. That night, I dreamed of drowning in gray fabric, struggling to surface while invisible hands held me down. I woke gasping, sweat-soaked, to find Tyler's side of the bed empty. Glancing at the clock, 3:17 a.m., I got up to look for him. I found him in the den, huddled over my father's laptop. He started when I entered, quickly closing the screen. What are you doing? I asked. Couldn't sleep, he said smoothly. Thought I'd check some work emails. On my dad's computer? Mine's updating. He stood, stretching casually. Let's go back to bed. The next morning, my parents and Emily left early for the conference center. Tyler insisted on making breakfast again, more pancakes, sweeter this time, the syrup pooling on the plate. I need to run some errands, I told him, pushing away my half-eaten food. I'll come with you, he said immediately. No, I said, too forcefully. I mean, you should work on that project you mentioned. I won't be long. His smile tightened almost imperceptibly. If you're sure. Take your phone. The moment I was in my car, I called my high school best friend, Meredith, whom I hadn't spoken to in nearly a year. To my surprise, she answered on the first ring. Rachel? Is everything okay? I hesitated, suddenly uncertain how to explain. I need a favor. Do you still have your yearbook from senior year? Sure, she said slowly. Why? I need to see our prom photos. Mine are missing. I can take pictures of the pages and send them to you, she offered. Actually, can I come over? Now. There was a pause. Tyler's okay with that? Something cold slithered down my spine. Why wouldn't he be? Another pause. No reason. Of course you can come over. Meredith lived 40 minutes away, in a small apartment above a bookstore. As I drove, my phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from Tyler. Where are you going? Your mom called. She's worried about you. I think we should talk when you get home. Rachel, answer me. I silenced my phone and drove faster. Meredith looked nervous when she opened her door, glancing past me as if expecting to see someone else. Come in, she said, leading me to a cluttered living room. I found the yearbook. She handed me the heavy volume, already open to the prom spread. And there we were, me in a lavender dress, standing beside Tyler, both of us smiling at the camera. This is how I remember it, I whispered. Meredith sat across from me, tucking her legs beneath her. Rachel, what's going on? You show up after a year of silence, asking about prom pictures. The photo in my house changed, I said, aware of how it sounded. The one in the silver frame. First my position changed, then the color of my dress. Instead of the skepticism I expected, Meredith's expression darkened. And Tyler says you're imagining it? I nodded. Like you said you imagined him flirting with your cousin at your wedding? Or when you thought he'd moved your car keys, but he convinced you that you'd misplaced them yourself. I stared at her, memories flooding back, arguments I'd forgotten, doubts I'd dismissed. Why did we stop talking, Mare? I asked quietly. She looked down. Tyler thought I was a bad influence. Said I encouraged your paranoid tendencies. After a while, you stopped returning my calls. Had I done that? I remembered Tyler complaining about Meredith, saying she was jealous of our happiness, that she tried to create problems where none existed. Somehow, between his comments and the business of life, our friendship had withered. Can I take a picture of this? I asked, pointing to the yearbook. Keep it, she said. I have my parents' copy, too. As I stood to leave, Meredith caught my arm. Rachel, be careful. When you stop talking to me. I was worried about you. I still am. I hugged the yearbook to my chest all the way home, as if it might dissolve if I loosened my grip. When I pulled into my driveway, I saw not only Tyler's car but my parents as well. My sister's rental was parked at the curb. They were waiting for me in the living room. Tyler, my parents, Emily, arranged like a tribunal. Tyler rose as I entered, face etched with concern. We've been so worried, he said, reaching for me. I stepped back, still clutching the yearbook. I want to see Meredith. Something flashed in his eyes, anger quickly masked by increased concern. Meredith? After all this time? Why? I opened the yearbook to the prom page and held it up. To see this. My mother made a small sound of distress. My father looked confused. Emily stared at the floor. Rachel, Tyler said calmly, we're concerned about you. These fixations, the erratic behavior. What erratic behavior? I demanded. Honey, my mother interjected. Tyler says you've been obsessing over old photographs, claiming they've changed. They have changed. I thrust the yearbook toward her. Look at this picture, then look at the one on my dresser. My father stood, hands raised in a placating gesture. Let's all calm down. Rachel, we think it might be good for you to talk to someone. Dr. Morris has an opening on Monday. You called my therapist? The betrayal was like a physical blow. We're worried, Emily said softly. This isn't like you. But it was exactly like me to notice details, to question inconsistencies. What wasn't like me was the fog that had gradually enveloped my mind over the years, the way I'd learned to doubt my own perceptions. I'm not going anywhere until someone explains why that photograph changed, I said firmly. Tyler sighed dramatically. I didn't want to do this, he said, pulling out his phone. He tapped a few times, then handed it to my father, who looked troubled as he read whatever was on the screen. Rachel, my father said heavily, Tyler has shown us some concerning searches on your computer. Websites about memory manipulation, forums about paranoid delusions. I never searched for those things, I said, my voice rising. And there are the missing prescription refills, my mother added. What prescriptions? Tyler stepped forward, voice gentle but firm. Your anxiety medication, Rachel. The bottles are empty, but you were supposed to have another month's supply. I'm not on anxiety medication. The room seemed to tilt around me. I've never been prescribed anxiety medication. Emily stood up suddenly. Okay, that's enough. Her voice was sharp. Mom, Dad, can you give us a minute? I want to talk to Rachel and Tyler alone. My parents exchanged looks but withdrew to the kitchen. As soon as they were gone, Emily turned to Tyler. Show me the framed photograph, she demanded. Tyler's jaw tightened. Emily, with all due respect, this isn't helping your sister. The photograph, she repeated. Now, something in her tone must have convinced him. He disappeared upstairs, returning moments later with the silver frame. Emily took it, studying it alongside the yearbook I still clutched. They're different, she said flatly. Memory is subjective, Tyler began. Photographs aren't, Emily snapped. She turned to me. When did you first notice the change? After Jenna's comment, I said. But she claims she never made that comment. Emily's expression hardened. Rachel, I need you to pack a bag. You're coming home with me tonight. Tyler stepped between us. That's not happening. Rachel needs stability right now, not more disruption. Emily didn't back down. What she needs is to get away from you. Tyler's concerned facade slipped, revealing a flash of cold fury. You always were a meddling bitch. In that moment, seeing the naked hatred on my husband's face, the pieces clicked into place. The missing yearbook page. The forgotten photo album. The mysterious searches on my computer. The fictional prescriptions. You changed the photo, I whispered. But why? Tyler's expression smoothed over. You're not well, Rachel. Emily, if you don't leave now, I'll call the police. Do it, she challenged. I'll tell them about the time Rachel called me with a sprained wrist, claiming she fell down the stairs that mysteriously had no signs of a trip or fall. I looked at my sister in shock. You knew. I suspected, she said, not taking her eyes off Tyler. But every time I tried to talk to you about it, you'd suddenly become unavailable. Your phone would be off, or Tyler would answer your texts. Memories surged through the fog, phone calls cut short when Tyler entered the room, emails I'd thought I'd sent that never arrived, friends who gradually stopped reaching out. This is ridiculous, Tyler hissed. Rachel, tell your sister to leave. But I couldn't speak. I was remembering other things now, the way Tyler always insisted on driving, claiming I was a nervous driver. How he managed our joint accounts because finances stressed me out. The subtle criticisms disguised as concern. You're so forgetful lately. Are you sure you want to wear that? Your memory has always been unreliable. Small things, insignificant in isolation, devastating in aggregate. Rachel, Tyler said, reaching for my hand. You know I only want what's best for you. I pulled away. Why did you change the photograph? His expression hardened. I didn't change anything. This conversation is over. He moved toward the kitchen, presumably to summon my parents, but Emily blocked his path. Let her answer, she said. Tyler's face contorted. Get out of my house. It's her house too, Emily shot back. Rachel, call the police. Tyler lunged at Emily, but I was already moving, placing myself between them. Stop, I shouted. Just stop. My parents rushed in, alarmed by the commotion. My father pulled Tyler back while my mother went to Emily. What's happening? My mother demanded. Emily kept her eyes on Tyler. Ask him why he's been gaslighting your daughter for years. Gaslighting? My father looked bewildered. Making her doubt her own memory and perception, Emily explained. Isolating her. Controlling her. My mother turned to me, face pale. Rachel, is this true? I looked at Tyler, the man I'd loved, the man I'd trusted above my own senses, and saw a stranger. A manipulator. A man who had systematically dismantled my confidence and autonomy, piece by piece. Yes, I said, my voice stronger than I expected. It's true. The unraveling happened with dizzying speed. Tyler was escorted from our home by police officers while a social worker took my statement. My parents, shell-shocked and guilt-ridden, barely spoke as they helped me pack essential items. Emily remained by my side, fierce and vigilant, as if Tyler might materialize at any moment. But even as the external chaos swirled, something within me was crystallizing, a core of certainty, of self-knowledge, that had been buried beneath years of subtle manipulation. The police found evidence on Tyler's computer of photo manipulation software, along with a folder of altered images, not just the prom photo, but dozens of pictures from our past, each subtly changed to reinforce a narrative of my dependency, my subordination. In one camping trip photo, he'd eliminated other friends, making it appear we were alone. In our wedding photos, he'd altered expressions to make me look anxious, uncertain. Most disturbing were the emails, hundreds of them, that Tyler had sent from accounts he'd created in my name, alienating friends, declining invitations, canceling plans. He built a digital wall around me, brick by brick, isolating me from anyone who might notice what was happening. The restraining order was granted immediately. Tyler's sister helped him move his belongings out while I stayed with Emily. Our house, my house now, felt strange when I returned, both familiar and threatening, as if the walls themselves had been complicit in my gaslighting. In the weeks that followed, I discovered more evidence of Tyler's manipulation. My high school yearbook reappeared mysteriously, the missing page returned to its proper place, slipped through my mail slot in an unmarked envelope. The lavender dress I'd worn to prom materialized in the back of the guest room closet, though I'd thought it donated years ago. Most telling was the journal I found hidden beneath the floorboards in Tyler's home office, a meticulous record of his strategies and successes in controlling me. He documented everything, when I'd questioned him, when I'd shown signs of independence, when he'd successfully convinced me to doubt my own memory. Reading it was like discovering the blueprint of my psychological prison. May 15, 2018. Rachel mentioned visiting her college roommate in Boston. Suggested it would be irresponsible with our budget. When she persisted, reminded her of her anxiety around travel. She apologized for even suggesting it. November 4, 2019. Rachel found the birthday card from Meredith that I'd intercepted. Convinced her she'd opened it months ago and forgotten. She became upset with herself for losing track of time again. Easy win. February 22, 2020. Rachel expressed interest in going back to school. Reminded her how overwhelmed she got during her first attempt at graduate courses. Suggested we start a family instead. Discussion tabled. Each entry was a knife twist, revealing not just the extent of Tyler's deception but the systematic way he'd eroded my self-trust. The techniques were textbook gaslighting, rewriting history, manipulating evidence, isolating the victim, projecting confidence while instilling doubt. With the help of a new therapist, not Dr. Morris, who I discovered had been feeding information to Tyler under the guise of spousal concern, I began the slow process of reclaiming my narrative. I reached out to old friends, rebuilt connections that had withered under Tyler's influence, and started to trust my perceptions again. The legal proceedings dragged on, restraining order hearings, divorce filings, property disputes. Tyler maintained his innocence, painting me as unstable, delusional, vindictive. Some people believed him. His family closed ranks around him. Mutual friends chose sides. But for each person who doubted me, another emerged with their own story. The colleague who'd seen Tyler monitor my phone when I left it unattended at a company party. The neighbor who'd overheard his cutting remarks when he thought they couldn't hear. Meredith, who had saved every unanswered message she'd sent me over the years. 6 months after the confrontation in my living room, I sat in my therapist's office, describing a recurring nightmare in which I was trapped in a maze of mirrors, each one showing a slightly different version of myself. It's about identity, Dr. Winters said. Your sense of self was systematically undermined. Now you're rebuilding it, but the foundation still feels shaky. Will I ever fully trust myself again? I asked. She smiled gently. You already do. You trusted yourself when you recognized the altered photograph. You trusted yourself when you went to Meredith for evidence. The path back to self-trust isn't linear, but you're further along than you realize. That evening, I returned to the house, my house, and took down all the photographs Tyler had selected and framed over the years. In their place, I hung new images. Candid shots Emily had taken of me laughing with friends at a recent dinner party, a selfie with Meredith during our reunion lunch, a picture of me standing alone at the summit of the local hiking trail, arms raised in triumph. As I hung the last photo, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You'll never be free of me. I'm still in your head. My hands trembled, but only for a moment. I blocked the number, took a deep breath, and continued arranging my new gallery of truth. 3 years to the day after discovering the altered photograph, I stood in the foyer of my new home, directing movers where to place boxes. The cottage by the lake was smaller than the house I'd shared with Tyler, but it was mine in a way no space had ever been. Chosen by me, furnished by me, a physical manifestation of my reclaimed autonomy. The divorce had been finalized 18 months earlier, after Tyler finally realized that his manipulation techniques no longer worked against me or my support network. He'd moved to another state, apparently engaged to someone new already. Sometimes I felt a pang of worry for this unknown woman, but I had learned that I couldn't save everyone. I could only tell my story and hope it reached those who needed to hear it. My sister Emily visited often, having relocated her consulting business to be closer to family. My parents, still wrestling with guilt over missing the signs of my emotional abuse, had become vocal advocates for domestic violence awareness, focusing particularly on the insidious nature of psychological control. Meredith had helped me establish a support group for survivors of gaslighting and coercive control, which had grown from 5 nervous participants to over 30 members meeting weekly. The simple act of validating each other's experiences, of saying, "I believe you," to women and men whose reality had been systematically denied, proved more healing than any theory or technique. As the movers finished unloading, I unpacked a small box containing the items I'd kept from my marriage. The original, unaltered prom photograph, which I'd found in Meredith's yearbook, Tyler's journal, which had been instrumental in the legal proceedings, and a silver key I'd discovered hidden in his office safe, which still remained a mystery. These items I placed in a fireproof box on the highest shelf of my closet, not to dwell on, but to remind myself, should I ever doubt again, that my perceptions were valid, my memories were real, and my intuition was trustworthy. That evening, as I sat on my new deck watching sunset paint the lake in shades of amber and gold, my phone rang. It was a local number I didn't recognize. "Hello," I answered cautiously. "Rachel." A woman's voice, hesitant. "My name is Vanessa. I was engaged to Tyler Abernathy." My breath caught. "I found your support group online," she continued, voice steadying. "The testimonials. The warning signs. I started noticing things, comments about my unreliable memory, small possessions disappearing and reappearing in different places, photos on his phone of my personal documents." I closed my eyes, the familiar pattern settling like a weight in my stomach. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be," she said. "I left before it went too far. I'm calling because I found something when I was packing. A key ring with dozens of keys, each labeled with a woman's name. One of them had your name on it. The silver key on my shelf. The mysterious lock it might open. Would you be willing to meet?" she asked. "Yes," I said without hesitation. "And Vanessa, you were right to trust yourself." As I hung up, I gazed out at the darkening lake, watching lights from distant homes reflect on the water's surface, distorted but real, changed by perspective but not by truth. In the 3 years since discovering the altered photograph, I had learned that memory might be fallible, perception might be influenced, but the self, the core beneath the manipulation, remained unalterable, waiting to be reclaimed. On my wall hung a new photograph in a simple wooden frame. Me on moving day, standing in the doorway of my cottage, keys in hand, face turned toward the future. Behind me, barely visible in the shadowed interior, was the outline of another woman, not a ghost or an intruder, but my own reflection in a mirror, equally substantial, equally real. Oneself, unaltered, finally free.